easier than the evening streams. Here, I'll get you guys see if we can get the leg lamp in there. I'm a big fan of Christmas Story. Anything National Lampoon, man. Oh, I love that stuff. So anyway, topic for this morning is we're going to talk about how basically we have wasted $15 trillion on welfare programs for the last basically 15 years. Okay, so let me do the math here. 09 to today, right? So what is that? That's going to be 15 years, right? So we got all this waste that has gone into welfare, and the reason this money has gone into welfare is not to prop up people's lives. It's so that businesses don't have to hire people, right? Businesses don't have to deal with the people that are unemployable, right? The people that are generationally useless, right? Which, again, terrible thing to say, and I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here to illustrate my point, because I have a solution. I've had a solution for a long time, and we need to get this money out of the welfare programs and into the small businesses and into the schools to train these people to be useful, right? And why is this? Why are we spending all this money on welfare? People think it's so we can make people's lives better, we can prop people up, we can give them food and housing and all these kind of things. And the truth is that's not why we're doing it. Like, we're doing it so that businesses don't have to deal with these people. These are people that we would call irredeemable, unemployable, use whatever adjective you want, but that money is going there so that, again, we can bring in illegal immigrants, so businesses can hire people that actually want to work, people that really want to make a wage, right? They don't want welfare, they want to make money, right? And when we have people here that can do this work, but we don't want to train them, right? So it's easier to bring in the welfare, right? And then we got the H-1B visas, which everyone likes to talk about. There's all kinds of visas, by the way. We bring those people in here, right? And then they can work for these businesses as well because they're highly employable. But we have this massive group of people here in America today that simply do not want to work, not because they don't want to make money, because they don't want to feel the respect that comes from having a job, because generationally they've been on poverty forever. Their parents were in poverty, their parents before them were in poverty, and we don't have a mechanism in place to teach these people, right? And so we tried the college route, right? Like, get people into colleges, right? The problem with that is that you're looking at creating a group of thinkers, right? And we don't need thinkers in this country, especially now, right? Like, I think we've all realized that that welfare and college has not helped this lower tier of people. We thought that you give someone a degree, it's going to immediately make them employable, and thus they're going to become great, productive members of society. And we're realizing that hasn't happened. In fact, most of the people now that are going to college are not making wages enough to be able to pay off their loans, right? So they're basically asking the federal government for handouts. They're asking the federal government to pay off their loans. They're asking basically for welfare. They're asking for money. They're asking for stuff that they didn't earn so that they can then maybe make their lives better. Okay, so these are the things we're going to talk about. Okay, as a small business owner here in St. Louis, Missouri, I've talked for years at this point at how we basically need a public-private partnership to train people, right? To get these people from our communities where our businesses are to be able to learn skills, to become employable, and so they can get out into the world and get off of welfare, right? You got to train people to get off welfare. You can't just say, hey, you fucking loser, get off welfare. You need to do better, blah, blah, blah. Like, you have to teach these people something. And we tried to do it with the college system. The college system isn't working. We need to do it with the businesses, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. It's a little bit of a charged issue. I'm going to talk specifically about black people, and I'm going to talk specifically about white people, because these are the people that I've seen the most problems with, right? The Hispanic community, the Croatian community, the Middle Eastern people, these people, hyper employable, love to work, love to learn. It's the black people and the white people that I've seen a lot of problems with. So that's what I'm talking about today. So could get a little bit charged. So if you think that I'm wrong, you have solutions, you have suggestions for my ideas and my thoughts, let me know in the comments, and we'll kind of bat this subject around. I think it's a good subject to talk about today because we have so many people on welfare today that need to be trained. We have so many, if you watch the news, you'll see there's so many news anchors talking about, oh, we need people to be welders, we need people to be HVAC, plumbers, electricians. I always talk about these 4 specific trades, but there's probably 100 trades within the trades themselves that need people to do all kinds of jobs, framers, concrete people, masons, earth movers. There's just tons of workers that we need in this country, and I'm going to talk about that today. Okay, so my name's Eric Wilkin, I own the Splendid Crow here in St. Louis, Missouri. I do these talks about small business. I talk about how we can train people, how we can get people to own their own small businesses, and I do it from the standpoint of someone who never graduated high school. I never was into the school thing. I love to learn, but I just couldn't sit in a classroom. So I own a small business here in St. Louis, Missouri. We have a boutique furniture company. We do about 500 pieces a year. We have a small 7 figures in revenue. I have 8 employees, and it's been a great business. Me and my wife own this company, and it's been a fantastic way to help people grow skills, to show people that they can earn a living, to help people take their skills that they learn in our business and maybe take that stuff into another business, or go move around and do things with the skills that they learned in our business. So it's very important to me that people get trained and that people learn how to do stuff that's valuable in society. Okay, so that's my spiel. That's what I'm going to talk about today. And got my cup of coffee, and let's see what we can do with this conversation this morning. All right, so the key numbers you guys need to know today are the numbers 15 trillion. Okay, $15 trillion is the amount of money that the federal government has put into welfare programs, right? This is things like, this will be your Section 8. This is going to be your SNAP benefits. This is going to be your training programs. This is going to be your WIC. You know, all these programs that everyone knows about that we essentially give to the poor, right? We give to this class of people who can't seem to get it together, right? And again, I'm generalizing. I'm going to generalize a ton in this thing. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. But we've given all this money out, right? $15 trillion. Essentially, $1 trillion a year is going to the lower class of people to keep them poor, right? To keep them lower class, to keep them in Section 8, to keep them on food stamps, to keep them popping out babies, right? They love when the poor pop out babies and then get more tax benefits, get more welfare benefits, because it keeps them in that system, right? Which is a really twisted thing, guys, if I'm being completely honest. Like, it's kind of sadistic in a way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down what we can do with this money that would actually help the people in our own country live better lives, contribute more to society, teach their kids how to be contributors, how to get the respect of, of working, of having a job, of potentially starting a small business or doing their own thing, because they can do it. It's not that these people are incapable, but I've hired so many black people and I've hired so many white people. I'm going to talk to you guys very candidly about what it's like to try and hire these people and why businesses today do not want to hire them. Okay, it has everything to do with what I'm talking about when it comes to welfare, when it comes to the way that we incentivize people to be losers. Okay, and it's not cool. As a person who's been called a loser his entire life because I didn't graduate high school, I didn't want to go to college. I proved everybody wrong, and I want the people like me to prove everyone else wrong as well, and to be able to tell that story of, hey, I got my shit together. Yeah, I was poor. Yeah, I didn't have this, but guess what? You can do it too. Here's how I did it. But if we don't get the federal government to stop doing what they're doing, these people are going to continue to be poor. They're going to continue to live in Section 8 housing. They're going to continue to expect that the greatest thing is buying a pair of Jordans and having a pair of Beats headphones. Like, there's so much more you can do in life than this, and just because you have a kid doesn't mean that you're doing anything for that kid by keeping them in generational poverty. So this spiel is, like I said, this is gonna be a pretty charged topic, but again, I've hired enough black people and enough white people in my days that I know what both of these groups offer when you're dealing with the lower class, because that's generally who I hire from, guys. So you have to understand that when we started this business, we hired only poor black people from the neighborhood where our factory was at. And that's how we started this business. But as our business grew, the expectations of things like quality, of showing up on time, of overtime, of all these kind of things, learning new skills, these people couldn't hack it. And it's easy to say, well, you just don't want to work. You just want illegal labor, and you just want, it's not like that, right? As you grow a business and you start to require more of your people, right? In order for them to make more money, it requires more of people, right? This is kind of how it works, right? And these people just couldn't do it. They couldn't wrap their heads around it. This idea of working 60, 70 hours a week for a short period of time so that the collective can accomplish something that's going to help them grow to move to the next level. These people, they don't understand it, right? And then when you pay them a bunch of money, it hurts their welfare benefits, right? So this idea of making more money hurts their free stuff that they're getting from the federal government and the state government. And so there's this conflict there. And if we can't fix this conflict, then, I mean, you take free money versus money you have to earn. Trust me, most people are going to take that free money, not because they're bad people, but it's just like college, right? I talk about college all the time. You tell an 18-year-old, hey man, you can go to college for 4 years where we got wave pools, you can have sex all the time, you can drink and party, and you have to go to class for 6 hours a day, or you can go work on the job site, 6 a.m., with your Dickies on and your work boots, and you can go fucking, clean off an auger bit. Like, you can do that. Like, no one's going to do that job, right? So this is the conundrum, right? So we have to create a system where it makes sense for people that are low skill, hard to deal with, don't have a lot of reasoning skills, logic skills aren't very good. We have to come up with a way for these people to be incentivized to do the hard thing as opposed to the easy thing, okay? So that's what we're going to talk to. So we got people coming in the stream this morning, guys. I appreciate you're here. We got a pretty charged topic this morning. So again, hit the like button, you guys, add to the discussion, and we'll bat this thing around. It's like, I don't really have to go to work early this morning. I can kind of hang out and talk about this subject as long as I want today. So we're in pretty good shape. So, all right. So for starters, we got Matt. Matt Torrance, you're back, man. Good to see you. Glad you're here. So you're right. You look a bit like Ed Friedland. I don't know who the hell that is, man, but I'll take it as a compliment. Okay. I heard that if you have a potential employee who just has a low IQ of about 75 or so, that there not much you can do with them. Yes and no. So there are, when you own a business, right, especially like a manufacturing business, the thing about a manufacturing business is you create a lot of shit, right? Whether that's drops from, aluminum parts, wood parts, plastic parts. You create a lot of dust, right? You got a lot of vacuum systems. You got a lot of machines. You have a lot of things going on in a manufacturing facility. So it requires a lot of stages within every one of those operations. There's all kinds of work that can be done, right? So I used to hire a guy who had, I wouldn't say he had Down syndrome, but he was what you're talking about, like super low IQ, probably a little bit, maybe autistic, something like that, And this kid, when he would do something, he would actually do it really well. But when you had him try to do multiple things, no way. And he would get distracted all the time. So you kind of have to keep your eye on him because he just loves smoking cigarettes. So you could have him go sweep the shop, right? Hey, get this broom. Here's a dustpan. I want you to run around and sweep the shop. And we do this to give people jobs, right? It's like, I probably didn't need to hire this guy, but he was friends with some of our other employees that we had at the business. So we're like, yeah, I'll bring him on, pay him whatever, $12 an hour. But he would start sweeping, right? And then all of a sudden he'd just be like, gotta go have a smoke. So he'd go outside, smoke a cigarette, and you'd be like, hey man, like you gotta do this on your breaks, and no matter how many times you told this guy, as soon as his brain clicked that, hey, it's cigarette time, no matter what he was doing, he'd go off and smoke a cigarette. So, 8, 10, 12 times a day, you got to go out there and say, hey man, and he'd be like, oh yeah, I forgot. And you can't do much with that person as far as growing their skills, but you can give them a job, right? And again, I want to say we paid this guy like 10, $12 an hour. This was 5, 6, 7 years ago. This was long before COVID. But point is that guy had a function. He had something he could do. And technically speaking, with what I'm going to talk about in this video, you could pay this guy enough money to not be on welfare, right? You can absolutely do that. And we'll talk about this stuff. But that's just one example of like a super low IQ person that you could pay them to do all kinds of stuff. And they would do things, but again, you have to kind of keep on them, right? Which is, immediately you would say, oh, that's guy, we can't do anything with him. Like, that's ridiculous. And I'm here to tell you, with a manufacturing business, you can, because there's so many things that have to be done. This isn't like an office place where we're fucking sending emails, and you gotta, vacuum the floors, vacuum the carpeted floors, clean the windows. Like, there's a lot more going on. So there are things you can do with these people. Okay, so Matt, you can do things with these people. Sometimes you got to kind of think about it. But again, if you're doing a public-private partnership where you're supplementing salaries while training, things like that, it makes hiring these people actually a great thing. It's a win-win, right? So, but we'll get into that, okay. But great question, man, I appreciate it. Okay, let's see here. Hal Haynes is here. See, what's the Democrat way? See, that's the Democrat way, and the Republic bought into it. That's the Democratic way, and the public bought into it. So, elaborate on what you're talking about there, Hal. I'm not quite sure I'm following you. So this idea of a public-private partnership, nobody does this. So if you're telling me that one party has, I'm here to tell you they haven't. Okay. Again, as a business owner that owns a manufacturing business, I can tell you that there's no mechanism, there's no program, there's no anything that incentivizes me to hire someone who's on welfare. There's nothing. Okay. Now you can say, well, you can get those people into trade schools, right? Or there's programs to help people. We have this place called Rincon here in St. Louis. Like, you can have people go there. And I'm here to tell you guys, like, that is not a solution, right? This idea that we're going to send everybody to trade school, like you'll hear the experts talk about, like on Fox News, they'll bring these experts on to talk about how we need to get people into trade schools. We need money for trade schools. Colleges need to move from teaching people in the class to getting people in the workshop, these kind of things. And there's an element of truth to that, but the problem is that every time you incentivize a trade school, what you're doing is you're incentivizing you're incentivizing a school to bring on administrators, right? To do things that aren't actually good or important for the employee to learn. Like, if you go to college, if you want to get a degree in accounting, right, you generally have to take a course in history, right? Or you got to take a course in economics, or you have to do something that is unrelated to the thing that you're trying to do, because these colleges have so many different professors and administrators that assist the professors, and ancillary people that facilitate the teaching of kids, whether that's through a workshop, whether that's through the classroom, whether that's through some extracurricular outside thing. There's a lot of fluff in a college or a trade school that facilitates the education process, right? And what this does is this makes it inefficient, right? Businesses cannot afford to do this, right? Businesses cannot afford to hire ancillary people just for the hell of it, right? You need people that add value to your business right away. You can't do this, but when you have free government money, you absolutely can. And I talked about this yesterday in my talk. Like, the only reason businesses can afford to hire people that don't add a ton of value is because they outsource all the people that do the real work to the third world. And you have that delta, right? I was telling you guys, that $250 an hour between the $32.50 an hour, that allows you to hire people to do bullshit jobs, okay? So again, the idea that you can create a trade program and create this learning institution for people to operate in the trades is the wrong approach. It's wildly incorrect. And only people that were educated in college would think that this is a good thing. Anybody that works in the trades, that actually works with their hands, has a small business, knows that this is bullshit, right? This is just a grift to get money from the taxpayer through the federal government to come back into these businesses by way of grants and research and all of these things that don't contribute to the education of an actual individual, to give them a real job that pays real money, okay? And we know this because the colleges have given too many people degrees that don't pay for themselves, right? And no small business can have that, So anyway, getting back to what I was talking about with this $15 trillion that we're spending on welfare programs. So here's the thing. $1 trillion a year goes into, again, WIC. People having kids. Here's some supplemental money so you can have kids. Okay, can you afford those kids? Well, that doesn't really matter, because we're going to give you tax incentives, and we're going to give you credits and grants and programs, to pay for that kid. It's like, well, you can't go to work if you got kids, right? You got to be able to pay for healthcare. You got to be able to pay for something. And the minute you get a real job, all those benefits are cut off, right? So what I think needs to happen is that we need to take, a massive portion of this $1 trillion a year that we're spending on welfare programs, and we actually need to create this public-private partnership that I've been talking about for years at this point, And let's just say it's whatever, half a $1 trillion a year, whatever it might be. What you have is again, if you're having someone who is low income, doesn't have job skills, hasn't really been able to figure out how to make it in society, a lot of small businesses can bring these people in, because we just have tons. Like, if I could hire someone for $7 an hour because the government's paying the other $7.50 an hour, this guy's making $15 an hour, half from the federal government, half from my business, I can hire someone to come in and literally sweep floors. Like, if that's all they do, I got 8 hours of work sweeping floors and cleaning up dustbins and cleaning up wood bins. I've got that work all day long, okay? But I'm not going to do it if I got to pay somebody $15, $20 an hour. It's not going to happen, okay? Now, a lot of people are going to hear that and go, oh, that's not a living wage. I need a living wage. So wait a minute. You're telling me you need a living wage? To come work for me, what do you need, $25, $30 an hour? Like, okay, well, let's talk about that from a public-private partnership standpoint, okay? Again, you didn't need $30 an hour when you're taking out $30,000 a year to go to college. Like, how come you need that money from me? Right? The point is that you need some kind of supplementation, right? That's what it really boils down to. The only reason people could afford to go to college while taking out $30,000 a year is because their expenses were essentially paid for by the college grant, right? Whether they were staying in the dorms, whether they were living at home, or they're, fudging the numbers and the money so they can have an apartment off campus, right? That's how that works, right? And it's a big, massive scam, okay? Now, get rid of that money. That money does not go to the colleges anymore. That money goes to the businesses where the real teachers are, okay? Now, we have tons of small businesses here in America that do a myriad of jobs, whether that's a small accounting company, whether that's a small rug company, whether that's a small cleaning company, a small furniture company like I have, right? The money needs to go to the businesses by way of taxes, right? By way of tax breaks, tax credits, all these kind of things, so that we can train people to do real freaking work, right? This idea that you can go get a degree in interpretive dance. No small business is gonna be able to do that, okay? Now, if you're one of these companies that sends all of its work to the third world, guess what? That delta that I'm always telling you guys about, that 250, that 3250, you can hire someone who does interpretive dance to work at your furniture company because you have so much money coming in by not having to pay someone to do real work, okay? So if we create this, whatever this public-private partnership is, so say whatever, I make $5 million a year in revenue, right? So by the time all my deductions are done, my balance sheets calculated at the end of the year, whatever I make, $500,000 is what I end up making for the year, right? So if I get some kind of a tax break that says, you know what, you hired 2 people that were lower class, they were on welfare, these guys are now working for you for a year, right? And they're making whatever, $20, $25 an hour, they're off welfare, okay? I deserve a tax break for that, right? Because as a business owner, I've had to take this person who has almost no life skills, almost has no working skills, and turn them into a productive member of society, okay? Now, that makes sense, right? The person that got the job wins. The federal government gets the win because now they don't have someone that's on the dole. The business gets the win for teaching them how to do something. Everybody wins, right? Now you have a productive member of society. The business knows they have a good employee. And again, they're not on the dole anymore. So you go from someone who's taking $20,000, $30,000 a year from the taxpayer is now contributing whatever, probably $7,000 a year in taxes, okay? This is good, right? And then if this person has kids, guess what? Now they're seeing that dad or mom, works. They're not seeing that dad or mom is on welfare. Dad or mom is not working to collect their check on the 1st or the 15th, right? They're seeing that dad's going to work every day. Dad's taking a lunch with him. Dad's just got a car. Dad's never had a car before. Now dad's got money coming in. Now dad maybe moves out of the shitty Section 8 apartment, gets a nicer apartment, these kind of things. Or maybe dad has worked for the company long enough. Now he's going to bring his kid in and show his kid what dad does, right? Maybe the kid can then get a job where dad has work, and so on. And these things escalate and they build and they create people that start thinking about what they can do with their life as opposed to how they can get something from somebody else in their life. They think about how I can make my life better instead of how the federal government can make my life better. These kind of things, so I hope this kind of makes sense to you. I know this is a topic that people don't necessarily get behind, but it's something that I'm just wildly passionate about because, again, I think we have all these people here in America. They're not bad people. They're not people that have just never had opportunity. They're people that have been incentivized to not be productive. They're people that have been incentivized to do less, right? And when they do more, guess what? Their benefits get taken away. Like, this is a non-starter. This doesn't work. And governments, especially the federal government here in America, incentivizes these people to stay there because businesses don't want these people to come work for them. And it's, again, probably a very controversial thing to say, but small businesses don't want these losers, right? And that's what we'll call them. I'm going to call them losers for the purposes here for a second. They don't want losers, right? When I see a person like that, I don't see a loser, right? What I see is a parasite. I see someone who's sucking off the system, and it's my job to help them not be a parasite, right? But I can't do it if there's no incentive, right? So I brought in many people in my small business as a woodworker to help me do things, right? To go get things, right? We need paint, we need different kinds of supplies, to go run errands, to deliver furniture, to sweep floors, to polish furniture, things that I consider to be kind of low skill, easy jobs. I bring these people in, and a lot of them honestly can do the work, right? It's not that they can't work. The problem is that they lack social skills, right? The way that they talk, the way that they carry themselves, the way that they look. Like, you can't have this, guys. And it sounds terrible, but I can't bring someone with dreadlocks smelling like weed to go meet one of my rich Jewish customers. Like, I'm sorry, that doesn't work. And it's very politically incorrect to say that kind of thing, but that's like the widest variation I can possibly think of. Like, you guys have to understand how this works. I can bring that person into work in my business, but the problem is that none of my people smoke weed. None of my people use fuck all the time as a comma, right? None of my people are on their phone all the time. So when you bring these lower class people into your business, and then the people within your work culture see that, they don't like it, right? So there has to be some kind of an incentive to bring these people into my business, because otherwise I'm not going to do it. Why would I subject my really good employees to this piece of shit, right? Why would I subject my employees to seeing this guy come in every day late, on his phone, smelling like weed, disheveled, all these kinds of things, when these people don't do that, right? So there has to be some kind of a mechanism to make that worthwhile, and I'm not exactly sure what that is, but I start with the tax side of it, right? So that's where I'm thinking you need to spend whatever, $300 billion a year incentivizing small businesses to train these people. Because the truth is, guys, where a lot of these small businesses are generally in lower economically developed areas, right? Industrial zones. These are zones where a lot of these poor people are, right? So it's easy for these poor people to get to the businesses, believe it or not. Yeah, they might have to take a bus or they might have to take a train to go a little bit, but it's a lot different than getting a poor person to go into the rich part of town where there are a lot of, retail jobs, stuff like that. To get these poor people into industrial zones, very easy. They already live around them, right? Because rent's cheap. Wealthy people don't want these industrial zones where they live, right? So the poor people generally get these industrial zones close to them. So it's kind of a win-win there. But there's got to be some kind of a tax incentive, So again, I hope this resonates with people and people kind of understand where I'm coming from and why we need to do this, okay? The other thing that needs to happen is we need to bring trade schools. We need to bring trades back into high school, right? This is super important because young people need to be exposed to wood, right? They need to be exposed to metal. They need to be exposed to grinders. They need to be exposed to sanders. They need to understand that things can be noisy. Being around noisy environments, it's okay, right? Being around dusty environments, it's okay, right? Being around welders, this stuff is okay, right? This idea of being around dangerous things, like every time I run a part through a table saw, there's the potential to have your fingers cut off, your hand cut off, the material to be kicked back into your stomach, right? Parts can be kicked back into your body and be lodged in your body, send you to the hospital, right? This happens every day, all day long, right? And do you think for a second that I think like, oh my God, this is dangerous, I shouldn't do this? No. And this is what we need to get into the high schools. We have a society of pussies, okay? And I say this, I say this with love, but when you have a society of people that go into high school, they're never around danger, then you send them into college where there's even less danger, right? I mean, they talk to you about things like trigger warnings, and everywhere you go, there's an emergency button to push in case someone's following you that you don't like, It creates a society of people that see fear everywhere they go, because they've never been around a dangerous environment. Being around danger is normal, right? Being around danger is actually a good thing. I used to joke that I love when people get injured on the job because it's less competition for me. It's a fucked up thing to say, but it's kind of the truth, But if we had more people that would be used to working in dangerous environments, then danger it's not a problem, right? It's just part of your job, and as people that work in dangerous areas and environments that have, dust and noise and people walking around and things moving all over the place, people are a lot less anxious, right? I mean, like take the virus that we're not supposed to talk about on YouTube. Think about the people that went to work every day during that, and then the people that stayed home, right? The people that stayed home were suits, right? Were people that had salaries, right? They got paid whether they went to work or didn't go to work. And then you had people that actually went to work every day, and they're just like, whatever. I get sick all the time. Like, I'm around dangerous stuff all the time. What do I care about some stupid little virus? Like, it's not going to affect me any. Like, I go to work sick. Like, big deal. Whereas the people that work in an office are like, oh, I'm sick. Oh, I've got to stay home. I better use my PTO, my blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a very different kind of person than, the dynamics between the person that works in an office and his salary working at home versus the person that has to go to work every day and empty trash bins, dust bins, sweep floors, make things, pour concrete, very different, right? And we got too many people that are doing the college, work from home, collect the salary, white collar shit, not enough people doing the blue collar type stuff, So there's a very big issue there, right? The people that are on SSRIs and on welfare do one kind of job, whereas the people that are not on those things tend to do another kind of a job, right? And we need to fix this disparity, right? We need to work on this disparity, and we can do it when small businesses teach the poor how to make money, right? Give the poor skills and teach them how to create wealth for themselves, create money, create momentum, right? Give them some W's and let them stack those W's into a cool job, So that's what needs to happen. But we got to get these these trades back into jobs and get these young kids exposed to different kinds of things, right? Get them exposed to things other than books and movies and literature and, thinking about concepts and reading books and writing reports. We got to get them actually making things. Make a birdhouse, make a toolbox, make a workbench, work on a car, change some brakes, change some tires. These kind of things, take out a shock assembly, put that assembly back together, put it back in the car. Teach these kids they don't have to only make money in the white collar world. And if they don't live in the white collar world, that somehow there's some kind of a loser, right? We've got to expose these kids to other things when they're in high school or hell, even middle school, so that they understand that working with their hands is not a loser's endeavor, right? Yeah, you're going to get out in the cold, but getting out in the cold is kind of nice. Maybe you're going to work around traffic. Okay, work around traffic's okay. It's not dangerous. Everyone thinks that it is, but it's not really that dangerous. People are aware of construction workers. There's a lot of safety mechanisms in place to keep people nice and safe. So we have to get these kids exposed to stuff really young, which means you have to incentivize the schools to put in a wood shop, to put in a welding shop, to put in an automotive shop. You have to get these things back into the schools, which unfortunately takes money, right? So you got to take that money from somewhere. And everyone always says, well, you just got to tax the rich more. Tax. It's not about taxing. You got to take the money away. Like, we spend plenty of money in this country. There's no lack of money. People seem to think that there is. But get these kids into these things. Incentivize the small businesses to hire these kids coming out of high school, right? And you can do all this with taxes, and you can literally take it all from welfare. There's so much welfare out there, guys. You could tax the businesses by way of all kinds of taxing mechanisms to pay for this kind of stuff, right? Instead of bringing H-1B visa workers in here to do the work that supposedly Americans won't do, or bringing the immigrants in, whether they're legal or illegal, to do the work that, again, Americans won't do, we could incentivize the businesses to hire Americans, right? We could incentivize the schools to teach these people how to do this work that apparently Americans won't do. That's one of the biggest lies that's probably been told in my lifetime, is that there's work that Americans won't do. I tell the story all the time. My mom used to pick strawberries, right? My mom retired a multi-millionaire, hyper successful woman, right? She had no problems picking strawberries when she was I think she was in her teens, if I remember correctly, right? And doing that work, she talks about it to this day, is one of the greatest things she ever did. It just taught her what work was. It's very important that kids learn this kind of stuff, We seem to think that people can't pick strawberries anymore, right? We can't do it. People don't want to sweep floors. Janitorial work, well, that's for the immigrants, right? That's for the peasants, right? This idea of being a chef, or excuse me, not a chef, a line cook, right? A line cook, well, that's for the Mexicans, right? The Mexicans do that work, right? The work that, working at Chipotle is one of the people that makes burritos for people. Oh, well, that's for the blacks, right? And we have to get away from this, guys. You can't just bring in illegal people or foreign people because you don't want to hire or train the people in your own country. And that's what we've been doing for my entire lifetime, right? Like, we all joke about the blacks. Oh, the blacks, let them live on fucking welfare. It's cheaper to keep them on welfare than it is to try and train them. They're untrainable, right? I've heard this forever. And there's an element of truth to it, but it's only true because we've stopped trying to train them, and you find one or two black people that can work, and you're just like, oh, that's the exception. It's like, no, we just don't train them. Like, we don't want to deal with them. It's easier, just let them be on welfare. They want to have a bunch of kids, look good, let them have a bunch of kids. They can all be on welfare. We're never going to train their kids. We're never going to have to deal with these people. Let them have all the Section 8 and the WIC and the SNAP and all this kind of stuff. And, they can trade that SNAP for Jordans, and they can go buy Jordans and Beats headphones, and their life's going to be great. And the truth is that a lot of these people, they're completely happy with it, which is the most sadistic thing of all. Someone that's happy being on welfare doesn't understand what kind of a horrible situation they're in. They can't fathom it because they've never seen anything better. Right? They've never been able to do anything better. And again, the minute you show them, hey, dude, you can make this thing, you can make a good wage, you can provide a lot of value and be part of a team, they think that's really cool. But then when their Section 8 and their welfare goes away, they're like, whoa, like that's literally their blanket, you know? So we got to fix this kind of stuff, guys. And when you incentivize people to be poor and then you bring in outside help because you don't want to train your own people in your country, like you guys have to understand how disgusting that is. It's wildly disgusting, and they'll cloak it in something like racism, like, oh, you're being racist, you can't talk about people like this. Like, what the fuck, I can't? Like, this is literally the problem. Like, businesses and wealthy people don't want to train these people. You know, they don't. And so, good, keep them on welfare. You know, we'll bring in the help that is really helpful. We'll, you know, do the H-1B thing. We'll bring in illegals, all these kind of things. You know, it's pretty twisted, guys. Like, again, as a small business owner, someone that has hired many of these people and seen how this works, I know exactly how it works. And again, people don't want to talk about it. You know, they just say, oh, those people would rather be on welfare. Fuck no, they wouldn't rather be on welfare. They would rather have a job. They'd rather have a yacht, right? They'd rather be balling in a Lambo, trust me. But their safety blanket is welfare because it's all they've known. And we refuse to train these people. We refuse to say, you know what? You can't be on welfare anymore. You can go get a fucking job. And guess what, business owner? You're going to hire these people. We're going to tax you guys. We're going to give you tax incentives to help train these people. You need to train people in your community, you know, but we don't want to do that either. You know, so it's a bad deal, but it all kind of starts in the schools, guys. Like, we've got to get trades back into the schools, whether it's wood shop, whether it's welding, whether it's, you know, showing people how to build houses, you know, hell, instead of, you know, most schools have like a ton of land around there, like, put up a fucking place where you can pour a concrete foundation, get a class where you guys pour concrete, you work on making concrete forms, you know, you then put up a stick structure, you know, learn how to put in windows, learn how to frame up a roof, do all these things. And then guess what? At the end of the class, guess what? Demo week, tear that shit down, bust out that concrete, show people how to use a jackhammer, get an excavator out there, you know, let's get something and pull all that shit out. Let's do it again. And keep teaching these people how to do this shit. It's really good. You know, same thing with if you want to make furniture. Get furniture in there. Let's make a piece of furniture for people. As the class, we're going to make something for the school. We're going to make, you know, chairs. We're going to make desks. I mean, what could you do if you had a class where literally the class makes whatever, a dozen desks every class, right? Then the school has desks, right? Show people how to make chairs. And it sounds like this stuff's kind of goofy. Like, well, how are you going to use that stuff? The act of making a chair or making a desk is life-changing for people. Seeing something that you actually created does more for people than you can ever imagine. This idea that, well, I go to school and I teach a bunch of kids something that I can never see, right? Oh, they got a degree. I gave them a degree. Yeah. And follow up with those students 5 years later. What are they doing? Oh, they're not doing a fucking thing that you taught them, right? In fact, they're doing less than you taught them. They gave you a bunch of money by way of student loans backed by the federal government, and you gave them a $40,000 a year job. That has nothing to do with the stupid art history degree that you gave them, okay? Like, you should feel bad about that. Whereas the woodworking teacher, hey, you guys built desks, you built chairs, right? You can go back to that school 20 years later, and guess what? That fucking desk is still going to be there. The person can go back every year, look at that desk that they made, and see what's happened to it. There's a tangible thing there, right? So anyway, so that's kind of what we're talking about today. So we got more comments coming in. All right, Hal's in here. Who we have? We got Joe Barinska in here. Barinska, another 86. Everyone says this 86. Like, I feel like everyone that's on these streams, like especially like over the last year, it seems like you're all kind of in that 86, 87 range, which is kind of interesting. Okay, let's see. F off. One might think this is about people learning to trade, which is fine, but basically a rant of a brainless No, like, dude, you need to go back and listen. Like, this isn't about people being brainless. It's about people being dumb. This is about training people and hiring people. Again, I hire these people. Like, these are the people that were in my community around my business. And I'm telling you guys that businesses need to train these people, and we're not training them because there's no incentive to do it. It's easier for a business to bring in outside labor, H-1B visa, and hire those people because they're more trainable. When you have people that are generationally in poverty, when you have people that are generationally on welfare in Section 8, it basically every year they get dumber, right? And again, I don't say this like to be a dick. Like, this is what happens. If you tell someone that they're dumb and worthless, and then generationally you keep doing this, and the only thing they can do is get on welfare, like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, if you can't understand that, man, like, you're the problem. It's wild that people think this way. But again, when you incentivize people to be on welfare, every time you give them more money when they have more kids, you're not incentivizing them to work. And then you tell the business owner, like, hey, don't worry about hiring these people. You can just bring in all these outside people. Guess what? They're not going to hire people. They're not going to hire people from the area. They're not going to take the time to train somebody. Why do you think businesses put all this stuff onto the colleges? Like, we don't want to deal with these fucking idiots. If they can make it through college, we'll look at hiring them. Like, that's bullshit. Because basically, the federal government's giving a ton of money to colleges, right, to train the select few. The businesses are only going to hire from the best few. And then the federal government's giving a ton of money to welfare and to all these people that don't do anything. They just generally are going to be in poverty, and that doesn't work. And again, I hope I've illustrated why that doesn't work, because I think that it's a trap. It's terrible. It's horrible what we've done to these people. And we need to train more of these people to do meaningful work. Like, why should it be okay for a business to bring in an outside person from another country rather than be incentivized to train the people around the business? It doesn't make any sense to me. And there's tons of work that all of these small businesses can do, but there has to be some kind of incentive to train people, because when you try and train them, it is an uphill battle. It's a struggle to try and train a poor person. It absolutely is. But it can be done. And again, you do it for enough years and you will take these people out of poverty. I guarantee it. You will teach them that work is awesome. Like, the idea that jobs suck, I hear this all the time. You see all the YouTube videos like, oh, I hate my job. People don't want to work because work sucks. It's like, what happened? Work is worse now than it was 5 years ago? Like, I think it's the exact same thing it was. But you have this mindset that people think that all jobs are terrible. They don't like to go to work. This idea that I want to work from home. It's like, what the fuck do you want to work from home for? There's no opportunity at home, guys. Like, I hate to tell you this. Opportunity is at work. And again, if you're on poverty, there's no opportunity at home collecting a poverty check, right? There's tons of opportunity at work. You can volunteer for things. Things always come up in a business. You get the opportunity every day to be the person that the boss goes to. And then maybe you become the boss. So there's all kinds of ways to help poor and disadvantaged people to do better. But you can't do it with nothing. Like, you got to do something. And again, I've talked about it before. The public-private partnership with the federal government. Get those welfare dollars out. Give them to the small businesses to train people. Give them to the schools to put welding classes back in the high school. To put automotive back in the high school. To put these things that are a lot of fun, and let's break this cycle of black people have to be entertainers, right? You got to be a rapper. You got to be a movie star. You got to be an athlete. You got to be one of these things. To where no, it's cool for a black person to be a frame carpenter, right? It's cool for a black person to pour concrete, right? To whatever, install decks. It's cool for a black person to own a small business. It's cool for a black person to do work that really matters. They don't have to be, their idols don't have to be rappers and entertainers. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, guys. I don't understand why it is this way, but I know why it is, because it's the welfare system, So we got to break the cycle, but it starts in the high schools, guys. It starts with people that are young, and again, so probably in this discussion now, I think it's been a good. I've made my case on getting the money out of poverty and getting the money into tax breaks and things like that for small businesses to incentivize hiring these kind of people, teach them skills that are super useful that they can then take into the world and do real stuff with. But you guys tell me. So hope you guys have a great day. We got another day of building furniture today. I finished up a vanity yesterday. Now I got to work on a dresser today and a credenza. And so that's something working on today. We got horrible weather coming in this weekend, so probably not going to go into work. But I'll spend more time talking about topics and things like that I think could really help small businesses and disadvantaged people to work in those small businesses and then become the owners of those small businesses. So anyway, you guys have a great day.